producer and or persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of DCTV. All producers and guests appearing on programs provide information and opinions based on information they consider to be reliable. DCTV does not affirm the completeness and accuracy. All DCTV members agree to adhere to DCTV's Statement of Compliance and are participants in a community medium forum where they're exercising their freedom of speech.
Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis. This show is a weekly series called The Network of Global Corporate Control that has been coming to you from DCTV for over 2 years. Today's segment is called World Bank and IMF Annual Meetings 2017. Thanks to DCTV, Carmen Stanley, studio producer, Maurice Jackson, audio and prompter, and Cruchet Starnes, floor director. During this series, I've been claiming that reality is very different from what you hear elsewhere, that the world's money system is corrupt, that the governments are part of this corruption, and the best part, that we are all going to work together to end this corruption by putting gold in our money, and that villages and towns are all going to have their own local currencies to introduce a local barter system. I call this the global currency reset. The last few segments have made it hard to simply dismiss what I'm telling you. The purge of nuclear launch officials following the detonation of a nuke 600 miles off the coast of Charleston in 2013. A leaked CIA memo inventing the term conspiracy theorists to sell the Warren Commission report on JFK's assassination, and of course, lingering doubts about what happened on 9/11. Our audience has continued to grow as I answer comments in the archives of this show. The people who believe what I'm saying has reached critical mass, and this means that the reality I've been describing is now manifest. During this time, I've continued to answer everyone's questions. The segment last August 8th followed storytelling rules. I was very thorough in describing our villain, the network of global corporate control, which has been plaguing humanity going back to even before the last ice age. A couple of days ago, James Chido emailed me to say that I needed to be more explicit and say that I was talking about the Jesuits. Then I found out that Chido was working with Eric Phelps. I told Chido that Eric Phelps was actually himself a Jesuit agent and that Phelps was also an Israeli diamond trader. I then exposed a few other Jesuit agents. Then a sock puppet, that is, a fake Twitter account that belongs to a spy, attacked me, and when I responded, they closed their account. Why do I think you need to know this? 2 reasons. To show people that I'm not pulling any punches. Some people say that I couldn't get away with exposing the Jesuits unless I were a double agent. I've kept all the crooks from stealing humanity's wealth, and the coalition I'm working with is going to wipe out all the corruption by decentralizing to villages and towns. This serves the 99%ers, that is, all of humanity, and nobody else. The coalition for the rule of law is stronger than the banking cartel. The other reason, to model what all of us have to do in the global currency reset, to get to know ourselves, warts and all. This isn't easy because it's hard to accept all of our imperfections. And on the 27th of November 2015, A person named Seaball said Karen gets attacked a lot. Also, it's normal she gets defensive. Trying to help people wake up is the best way to get eggs thrown at you. And what I said was the hardest thing in the world is to accept criticism, especially when it's true. My two sisters and my two daughters are helping me to see myself as I am, not as I like to portray myself to myself. In ancient Egypt, this is called the weighing of the heart. I'm going to show you the teleprompter from last year, just before that impersonator Donald Trump had his fake inauguration. When you know that Russia lost more than 25 million people in World War II, and also that Moscow State University is publishing the truth about how the Jesuits tried to rewrite history in their Chronologia website, you know that the Russians are not going to sit back and let the culprits who brought about World War II have their way. Yes, it's the people at the heart of the network of global corporate control, the pharaonic bloodline families, and that's called the Octagon in Switzerland. My comment to our Japanese allies was also published by Popular Resistance after I tweeted it. What was the comment? The global currency reset depends upon the chain reaction among the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the public in the BRICS, and Germany and Japan. I'm working the problem and reporting back every week on progress. That's why freedom of the press in Okinawa is so dangerous to the network of global corporate control identified by Stefania Vitali, James Glatfelder, and Stefano Battiston at the Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, Switzerland. This network is often referred to as the Banking Cartel. As stated previously, the U.S. Postmaster General, Megan Brennan, failed to respond to my complaint and refused to deliver my priority mail letter informing Japan that the U.S. military, via the Joint U.S.-Japan Committee under the Status of Forces Agreement, is not going to surrender unilaterally through a crash of the unconstitutional Federal Reserve note. I briefed senior members of the Japanese government and all of the embassies in Tokyo about the exchange of paper currencies for currency minted out of Japan's monetary gold reserves in the global debt facility when I lived in Tokyo in 2014. The global currency reset will also involve local currencies issued by Japan's villages and towns. The Joint U.S.-Japan Committee under the Status of Forces Agreement and Germany will not allow the U.S. Federal Reserve notes and the national paper currencies to fail because this would leave Japan and Germany without any military defense. The power transition model from the U.S. National War College that came to the World Bank in 2004 and which is 90 to 95% accurate is clear. Popular Resistance posted my comment, and on October 28, 2016, I emailed Germany's and Japan's defense attachés in Washington, and I told them the U.S. was in interregnum, that the U.S. Congress had suspended the Constitution of 1789, and that under these circumstances, the Electoral College was not able to elect a new president of the United States. If these countries expect the U.S. to honor its treaties for their defense, they will not sit on their hands and allow the Federal Reserve note to crash, which is what the network of global corporate control has been planning. The chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joseph Dunford, Jr., has not defended serious accusations that he is corrupt and trying to bring about the downfall of the United States. His silence is the same thing as an admission of guilt. I had already accused General Dunford on the 31st of May, 2016, of the same exact thing in my segment called Whistleblowing. And there's a video that we're going to be showing you. The G77, that's 134 developing countries, Germany, and Japan. Let's talk about the battle against the network of global corporate control. There have been many victories. One victory was when General Dunford, chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who thinks he's above the law and has the right to be a dictator, and he is following instructions from the network of global corporate control. What he did was he erased my response to Anna von Reitz. I had responded because Anna von Reitz was trying to steal the world's gold and give it to General Dunford, who that would plunge us immediately in World War III. 3 hours after I started looking for that missing response, someone put it back in my computer, and I could show how Anna von Reitz had failed in her attempt to steal the gold in the global debt facility. That gold is subject to the decision of the 188 ministers of finance. Because this is a sting operation, the agents that were trying to help von Reitz were also exposed. Benjamin Fulford, Field McConnell, and the Able Danger operation. One of my favorite tweets mentioned this dirty trick that they tried to erase a response that I had made, and I listed a few other dirty tricks of the network of global corporate control, including a warrant for my arrest that was signed by Bertrand Badret. He was managing director and chief financial officer of the World Bank. That document, which Badret signed on the 15th of February 2016, also stated that he was dissolving the global debt facility in order to steal the world's assets from the world's peoples. Badret signed that document as acting president of the World Bank, and that was what he signed on the arrest warrant as well. Badret has left the World Bank. I knew this was going to be a battle that could be won because the power transition model from the United States Department of Defense predicted that a coalition for the rule of law would form, and that this coalition is stronger than the network of global corporate control. The lies of the network of global corporate control are exposed, and the network is exposed. The network of global corporate control requires secrecy in order to continue in power, and this secrecy is now missing. Vitaly Glatfelder and Battiston showed the existence of the network of global corporate control. And if you're following me along with the prompter, you can figure out that I'm going to be speaking extemporaneously. This is also because some people said that I sound more sincere when I'm not reading from the teleprompter. The reason, of course, that I use the teleprompter is because I want to make sure that my facts are crystal clear, and it's very important that people realize that we are really all in this together and we're all working together. Now, what I'm going to be doing in the next couple of days is I'm going to be emailing and mailing directly to the Washington ambassadors and the delegates who are gathering in Washington for the annual meetings. And these minutes actually do replace the minutes that the Secretariat is going to be posting. That's because I am representing the United States on the Board of Governors, and I'm also part of this coalition, which is responsible for the U.S. monetary gold reserves, which General Eisenhower and Truman signed over to the World Bank and IMF at the end of World War II. And this gold is what is going to keep the United States currency from crashing, because the Federal Reserve notes they're not backed by anything, and they've been working very hard to try to make them fail. Now, what has happened is that we are now, I'm speaking to what we call a critical mass of people. The number of people that believe what I'm saying is enough so that we are now dealing with another reality. And what's going to happen is the group of us that understands that we are now all working together in reality, we're going to continue to work together until everybody else understands and we actually do have the global currency reset. And the reason that I'm before you is because that coalition that I've been describing is very real, and it is much stronger than the banking cartel. And what I'm going to be telling you is that the people in the banking cartel know full well that enough people have realized what the actual reality is. And we will have the global currency reset. It's going to take some time. I don't know the exact time, but hopefully this is going to be a peaceful currency reset. And now I'm going to switch back to the teleprompter. How should you evaluate the information that I'm giving you? That's what I'm asking you to do. If you're not a victim of mind control, then you're going to take me very seriously, especially when I show you what I tweeted on Sunday to the New York and Tokyo embassies and then posted on the internet. I said that any embassy that didn't agree with the minutes of the upcoming annual meetings of the World Bank and IMF concerning the global currency reset to wipe out the corruption in the world's monetary system had to go on record in writing. And as I mentioned, I'm mailing hard copies of these minutes to the Washington embassies. The minutes are the real minutes of the World Bank and IMF annual meetings. I speak for the Board of Governors unless the countries go on record in writing. This was agreed to 2 years ago when I spent 6 hours in face-to-face meetings with the delegations in Peru during the 2015 annual meetings. This is all consistent with the United States National War College Power Transition Model, which has a track record of being 90 to 95% accurate. I'm in a position of trust as Overseer Mandate Trustee of the World's Monetary Gold Reserves and other wealth that Jose Rizal and Ferdinand Marcos deposited with the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF. How did I get to be Overseer Mandate Trustee? Ibrahim Shihada, an Egyptian lawyer, hired me into the World Bank's legal department in 1986. I had written a legislative history of the G77, which is a coalition of 134 developing countries that was formed by Ferdinand Marcos. 1 year after I was hired at the World Bank, I was approached by another Egyptian lawyer who put me in touch with the alternate executive director for Egypt on the board of the World Bank. I was assigned to Yemen and Jordan as these countries' country lawyer for 10 years. I was reassigned to the Philippines after I reported corruption on the Aden port project. I was reassigned to Nigeria after I reported corruption with Lucio Tan and a $1 billion failed banking loan in the Philippines. I kept on reporting corruption at the World Bank, up the corporate ladder, and then to the United States Congress. And when that didn't work, I started reporting the corruption to the public. Along the way, I started reporting to the Dean of Yale Law School and the public at large that the Board of Executive Directors was getting blackmailed. I bought a World Bank bond and sued in the U.S. federal court. Before coming to the World Bank, I was a securities lawyer in New York. I joined the legal department of the U.S. Export-Import Bank after refusing to close a corrupt offering of stock in my private law firm. The law firm I had been working for had to unwind the deal. I reported the corruption at the World Bank up the corporate ladder in the World Bank to the U.S. Treasury Department and then to the U.S. Congress. I'd been working with Senator Lugar in hearings on the World Bank in the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations and reporting the corruption to various embassies. My reports of this corruption and my correspondence with the various embassies is on the record in my website, and I've got the link to the website in the teleprompter. The American Bar Association, the International Law Association, the Washington Foreign Law Society, and the insurance companies that issue surety bonds on the oaths of office of the federal judges all refused to acknowledge the severe corruption that I was reporting on the world's securities markets. There's only one mainstream media article reporting this corruption in Newsweek on Espanol. That article was never published in hard copy and was taken down from the internet once. People will not be surprised that I also reported corruption in organized religion. We are not going to deal with religion until we've cleaned up the corruption in the world's money system. I've already mentioned in the May 30th DCTV segment showing that the head of the snake, the bloodline families, the secret societies, and of course the Jesuits are all trying to hide using the divide and conquer trick. And in my introduction to the July 4th, 2017 segment, I said, the banking cartel has lost its control and humanity is now getting organized to liquidate the network of global corporate control. A critical mass of humanity knows that it's necessary to replace the Federal Reserve note and the rest of the banking cartel's corrupt paper currencies and cancel fake country debt. I'm in constant communication with the banking cartel through its agents, who usually pose as people trying to help me. Most of the people who are really trying to help me contact me indirectly. For example, there was a hacker in the U.S. military who made sure that my July 3rd, 2016 tweet was on my computer screen when I booted up on July 4th, 2017. So I tweeted in July 2017, this is from a tweet on July 3, 2016. And if you read the first paragraph, you can assure your friend Karen that the defense forces of our country remain loyal to the U.S. Constitution and the citizens of our country. That is reality, and that is what is backing the global currency reset, along with Japan and Germany, who will not let their treaties of defense with the U.S. fail. There is no easy target for the banking cartel. Humanity is one. And we're scrolling quickly, I guess, because you want me to go to the outro. Is that it?
No.
Oh, okay. Donald Trump tried to alienate Germany, first during his inaugural address, and then more recently with the state visit of Angela Merkel. We know from the power transition model that the United States must retain its alliance with Germany in order to prevent World War III. I told the District Court and Court of Appeals in the District of Columbia about the hidden secret contracts on the signature lines of bank cards in my case, and they simply stonewalled. The Judicial Conference ignored the 188 ministers of finance who settled my case. Neil Gorsuch is bankrupt, and the Supreme Court is bogus. That's because the Constitution of 1789 is not in effect. From my letter to Supreme Court bogus Chief Justice John Roberts, I said, a stakeholder analysis derived from accurate game theory modeling shows a clear fork in the road for the United States: rule of law and the transatlantic alliance, or corruption and the ascendancy of China. And this stakeholder analysis was removed from the internet. The analysis is mentioned in a paper which I've given you a link for, and there's also a book about the War College's power transition model. And I can read you an excerpt that Joseph Kugler wrote in the War Presidency, Options Taken and Lost. It was published in 2004, specifically a gap between the U.S. and Germany, the leader of Europe now and into the foreseeable future, generates frictions and dissatisfaction within the Western alliance. This dissatisfaction, in turn, raises the potential of a challenge between the U.S. and an emerging giant in Asia. Contrast this structure with the alternative that was emerging after the war in Afghanistan. A German-led EU was coordinating anti-terrorist efforts with the U.S., Russia, France, and Japan, and they seemed to be participating in an expanded NATO-EU Atlantic alliance. China was now neutral. Given this structure, the potential challenge from a dissatisfied Asian power could be delayed until the end of this century. And here is an excerpt from Randolph Silverson about the contributions of international politics research to policy, and that was published in 2000, and I'm giving you the links. The forecasts produced by the model were shown to be both more specific and more accurate than the results generated by the Directorate of Intelligence. Analysts have a tendency to look to the future as a projection of the past, while the model, to the contrary, begins with the assumption that policies are the product of changing political forces that are estimable. It may be noted that it generates forecasts about policy outcomes using information on how stakeholders, that is, those with both an interest in an issue and an ability to affect its outcome, are positioned on an issue, how important the issue is to them, and how much power each stakeholder has. How does the model fare? Quite well, in fact. The model was used to analyze scores of policy issues in over 30 countries, actually 275. The model's rate of accuracy was about 90%, and when the forecasts of the model and CIA analysts differed, the model's forecast was correct in every case. The administrative officer of the U.S. courts, Mr. Mark Langer, clerk of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, removed pleadings from the PACER system in the docket of my case. And now I think we're scrolling because you want me to get to the outro. A critical mass of people in all the countries of the world are now working together in a global currency reset to end corruption in the world's monetary system. We've been learning how to work together for over 2 years. The Coalition for the Rule of Law on the Boards of Governors was predicted by the power transition model from the U.S. War College. I've been working with the Coalition for the Rule of Law through my social media on the internet. Please send me your comments and questions. Until next week, I'm your host, Karen Hudis.